Health. The Nasdaq just hitting 5,000. Joining me right now is Rubicon CEO Frank Addante, and he is joining me with more on what's going on in these markets. Frank, good to see you. Before we get to what you're doing, I want to ask you your thoughts of the Nasdaq 5,000 and how things are different this time than the last time we saw the Nasdaq hit these kinds of heights, which was March of 2000, which we all know resulted in a big swoon for technology stocks.
Yeah, I think the bar for public companies today is much higher than it was back then. The scrutiny that you have to go through, there's the investor education that's been done. You have to have a balance of good discipline, good fiscal discipline, as well as good focus on innovation in the future. So I think the bar is much higher these days.
The bar is higher, certainly, because you're seeing real earnings in some of these companies, and you're seeing real growth stories. Let's talk about the startup landscape, where $1 billion or bust is king. I want to hear what you're seeing in terms of the private market and the entrepreneurialism out there.
Yeah, I think it's a great time for innovation. There's access to capital for new companies to be reinventing certain markets. I think the focus on companies these days is really twofold. You have to be innovating and disrupting in these markets if you're going to be a $1 billion plus company. But it's also an incredibly super highly competitive market for recruiting. So I think the new companies of the future really need to be focused on things like culture. Creating a culture that attracts great talent and also makes them very, very productive, for them to be able to, to build in the performance and innovation that these companies need.
I mean, the whole world is changing, and you're seeing it really through advertising. Last week we were talking with the CEO of AOL. We talked with him basically looking at programmatic advertising, and Martin Sorrell from WPP also weighed in. So talk to us about how the advertising landscape has changed in the middle of all of this startup activity.
Yeah, so 7 years ago when we pioneered or started Rubicon Project, we pioneered the automation of advertising. If you look at any other major market where billions of dollars exchanges hands between thousands or more buyers and sellers, those markets have all become automated. And if you look at the way they've become automated, they all started by connecting the buyers and sellers through a centralized marketplace and a centralized infrastructure. That same thing is happening in advertising, and that market has grown from 0 to $9 billion in just a few short years, and is projected to triple over the next 3.
Yeah, so in other words, it's getting easier and sort of much more transparent, right? Because when you're buying advertising and you're doing it in digitally the way you're talking about, you can see exactly what you're buying, how much, and the audience levels. Everything is much more transparent than it ever was.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. In our platform over at Rubicon Project, we've now connected 650 million consumers with over 100,000 advertiser brands, and that's across more than 50% of the ComScore 100 websites, so the top websites in any given region around the world. And what we've done by creating this transparent marketplace is now the advertiser knows exactly the consumer that they're trying to reach in a non-personally identifiable way. And the buyer is able to see who the seller is is able to see who the buyer is. They both know the buy and sell price. And what we found is that if you look at these other markets that have become automated, that transparency has enabled those markets to grow, and that's exactly what's happening in advertising today.
It's pretty extraordinary. Frank, thanks very much for stopping by. We appreciate your time today.
Thanks for having me.
We'll see you soon. Frank Addante from Rubicon. Coming up.